Welcome, thank you for joining me. My name is Bjorn. We're going to be looking at the Banshee build that I've come up with here. It's not a very complex multi-classing build, thankfully. It's pretty simple and nice to get into. I felt that the way that the wizard added on to what the Blood Hunter Ghost Slayer was missing, it really complemented each other, and I think a lot of people will enjoy the build. So with that, let's go ahead and get into it. So in case your DM or your campaign doesn't allow for Blood Hunters, I am going to be making a separate Bladesinger Wizard build. I felt like it complemented the Bladesinger for what I felt that at later levels it was possibly missing. So I'll be making that in a little bit. I don't really have a name for it right now. I'll probably just go with a better Bladesinger. I don't know. I'll think of something. Regardless, let's go ahead and look at some of the stats that we're going to need. So of course, with the multi-classing of the Wizard and Blood Hunter, we're going to be needing an intelligence of 13 for Wizard and an intelligence of 13 for Blood Hunter. So as we can tell, it's a pretty nice, easy multi-class to get into. For stat priority, I would recommend having your Dexterity and Intelligence as your highest stats, and then your Wisdom. Mostly this is because it's going to benefit us most with our AC later down the road. For possible dump stats, I would consider looking into Strength or Con. I would recommend having a higher Charisma with this build, but of course that could be a dump stat as well. Now, as for a race, personally, I'm going to be going with a half-elf here. There is a class restriction around the Bladesinger. It requires you to be an elf or a half-elf. Within the lore of the game, the elves hoard this knowledge to themselves. I like to stick to that personally because I think it makes sense that the elves, they would not so often probably even give it out to half-elves. It feels like the Bladesinger is a very, very powerful archetype, and it makes sense to me that a race of people that hold themselves superior to above others, with, how a lot of elves are portrayed, it would make sense to me that they would want to keep this knowledge to themselves and have that advantage over, say, other races in the D&D universe. And of course, the reason why I went with half-elf is because it's probably one of the better power gaming races there is. But of course, there's other options. And if you want to play a different race, just talk with your DM about lifting that restriction. Of course, if it's good enough reason for it, if there's a story reason, I don't see why they wouldn't go for it. So of course, with the ASI, we gain a Charisma of +2, and I decided to go with a Dex and Intelligence modifier increase. We also gain a Dark Vision of out to 60 feet, of course. We gain Fey Ancestry, awesome, and we gain 2 skills of our choice. I'm going into Investigation and Survival, lending ourselves towards being that person who has knowledge of these creatures and these fiends, the Fey, the undead, that we're tracking and we're hunting down. And a language, of course, is up to you. I decided to go with Sylvan. I like the idea that maybe I had to go into the Feywild at some point and maybe pick this up, or the person who was training me happened to only know Sylvan or some shit like that. I haven't fully worked out the backstory. And for background, I've decided here to go with the Urban Bounty Hunter. This is probably one of my more favorite backgrounds to choose from. With this, we gain 2 skill proficiencies. I decided to go with Stealth and Insight. And of course, with tool proficiencies, I would recommend going with the Thieves' Tools here. Very nice little benefit that we can have with this background. And then we also gain the Ear to the Ground feature. This is pretty interesting. It's similar to how the criminal/spy background work, except with this, it's more of a broad range. So let's go ahead and get into the class now. So with Wizard, we're going to start with them at level 1. We gain some proficiencies. I decided to go with History and Arcana, lending ourselves towards that person with the knowledge and insight onto these creatures would be useful to us in our group. And I really like to play up that side with this character. Of course, at first level, we're also getting Arcane Recovery. This is going to be extraordinarily useful for us because we are only investing 4 levels into this class. And of course, at second level, we get to choose our Arcane Tradition, and we're going to be going with the Blade Singing. And as we know, there is that restriction. This is between you and your DM if you want to lift it. For our weapon of choice, I'd recommend going with the Rapier. I really like that elegant feel of it, and it is also naturally a finesse weapon. There is, of course, an arsenal of weapons here that you could go with. I see people like going with longsword over rapier because it's essentially the same thing. Longswords are actually a strength-based weapon. A lot of people tend to use them as a finesse weapon, so you can use your dex, but just make sure that's communicated and understood that you're going to be using a longsword as a dex-based weapon. And of course, with how our blade song works, we're never going to want to use it in 2 hands anyway, so I don't see there being much harm in it. It's more of just a stylistic thing. And of course, the bread and butter of the Blade Singer is the Blade Song. So starting at second level, we can invoke the secret elven magic called the Blade Song, provided that you aren't wearing medium or heavy armor, or using a shield. It graces you with supernatural speed, agility, and focus. So if this, we are going to be using light armor, so the best that you're going to be able to use is studded leather. I really like this. It means that we don't need to be wasting spell slots on mage armor. You can also use a bonus action to start the blade song, which lasts for 1 minute. It ends early if you are incapacitated, if you don medium or heavy armor or a shield, or if you use 2 hands to make an attack with a weapon. You can also dismiss blade song at any time you choose. No action required. So when we activate it, we gain a bonus to our AC equal out to our intelligence modifier. Our walking speed is increased by 10 feet. We have advantage on dexterity acrobatics checks, and we gain bonus to our constitution saving throws to maintain concentration on a spell. Bonus is equaled out to our intelligence modifier, and this is why I would recommend having a high dex and a high intelligence build for this character. This is an amazing ability to have. The Blade Singer is probably my most favorite wizard. It's personal bias. I tend to lean myself more towards melee builds. Of course, we level this up to a level 4 wizard. I decided to go with the Prodigy feat here. I decided to take Intimidation, the Poisoner's Kit. It felt befitting if we're going to be playing someone who works with dealing with certain monster types. Maybe we can develop a poison or such. You also get to choose a language with it. I decided to go with Abyssal here. As well, we also get to expertise 1 skill of our choice. I decided to go with survival in this case. That is of course up to you, and this also benefits us a great deal with going into the Blood Hunter. So to quickly go over some spells for the Blade Singer that I would recommend going to Firebolt. This is going to be your primary ranged ability. Very beneficial for us to have in case we can't be in melee with something. It only makes sense. Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and then there's some other more broad stroke useful things such as Detect Magic and Find Familiar. These are very useful because they're ritual spells. We can use them as such. We don't need to burn a spell slot. And of course, I felt Jump and Long Strider also helped fit into that more physical side of us. Shield is primarily what I wanted to take this for, is because we can increase our AC by 5 as a reaction. Now, after the 4th level Blade Singing Wizard, we invest into the Blood Hunter order. So at first level of the Blood Hunter, we gain the Alchemist Supplies. This is just a nice little beneficial tool proficiency that we gain. So now we have our Poisoners and our Alchemist Supplies. Also at first level, we gain the Hunter's Bane. This is awesome. I love this. So essentially we gain advantage on wisdom survival checks to track fae, fiends, and undead, as well as on intelligence checks to recall information about them. So this is again fitting very much into that feel of this character being able to track all that shit. I'll get into a deeper backstory of my character at the end here. We also gain some Crimson Rights at first level. The one that I'd recommend that you take immediately is the Rite of the Flame. Mostly because at lower levels, there's an incredible amount of things that you need to kill and keep dead by fire damage. And I would recommend, in possibly this order, going with Rite of the Frozen, Rite of the Storm, and then Rite of the Dead. At 3rd level, we will gain Rite of the Dawn naturally from our archetype. So at 2nd level, we gain a fighting style. The most obvious choice here is dueling, because of course it fits into the Blade Singer Wizard. So starting at 2nd level, we gain the Blood Maledict feature. This is pretty useful. Of course, with this, we get the Blood Curses. For the first one that I would take, I'd recommend looking at Curse of the Binding. For other ones, I would recommend then going with Curse of the Eyeless. I would recommend going then into Curse of the Mart. For the 4th, Curse of Purgitation. And then for the final one that we get, it will be the Curse of Mutual Suffering. Now, starting at 3rd level, we finally get to choose our Blood Hunter order. Now, of course, we are going with Order of the Ghost Slayer. 3rd level, we gain the Rite of the Dawn. This is a powerful rite that we gain earlier on than what we would have gained later. So now at lower levels, we can do fire and radiant damage and dealing with whatever monsters we're coming up against. At 4th level, we gain a new ASI. I decided to go with a feat, the Defensive Duelist. This makes it so that as a reaction, we can add our proficiency bonus to our AC. So this is very beneficial in the fact that perhaps we don't need to use our shield and burn a spell slot in order to use that. 5th level, we gain our first and only extra attack. Very beneficial for us. At 7th level, we finally gain our Hallowed Veins. Our blood curses become honed to the fabric of a creature's essence. Your blood curses can now affect any creature regardless of their form or lack of blood. And this is why I really like the Ghost Slayer Blood Hunter build. And of course with this we also gain the ability so that when we amplify our Blood Maledict, we can re-roll that die. At 8th level we gain a new ASI. I decided to go with the Elven Accuracy here. This is a very powerful feat. If you have access to it, I would recommend taking it. Another very beneficial fact of going into, for example, the Half Elf here, we gain the Elven Accuracy and the Prodigy feat, both very powerful feats for us to have. Essentially, this just gives us super advantage whenever we have advantage on a dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma attack roll. At 9th level, we gain Grim Psychometry. I'm gonna go with it. So we can take 10 minutes to meditate on an object to discern the vague details regarding any lingering or evil, wicked past surrounding it. So essentially, this is really feeding into us being like the detective of evil shit. At 10th level, we gain the Dark Velocity. This is pretty useful. We beckon the surrounding shadows, unnatural swiftness, blah, 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 blah. Essentially, we gain more dark vision, so this puts us out to a 90-foot range. And then we also gain 10 extra feet while we're in the dark, so this is pretty awesome. At 11th level, we gain the Supernatural Surge. You've learned to briefly step into the spirit world, enabling Swift Deadly Strike. When you use the attack action on your turn, you can expend one use of this feature and attack 3 times instead of twice. And you temporarily become spectral. Until the end of your next turn, you can move through other creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. You 1d10 force damage if you end your turn inside of an object, which would be dumb as fuck, but might call for it. And we can do this a number of times equaled out to our wisdom modifier. So this is a pretty cool feature. This is where we start to really take on that aspect of the Banshee or the Wraith, whatever you're looking for. 12th level, we gain a new feat. I decided to go with the Linguist in this case. I felt it'd be maybe appropriate that this character, with seeking out knowledge of these creatures and how to deal with them, that they felt that they had to, or they ran into a literal block of that they couldn't read the information that was given to them. So it was nice too that we gain an intelligence score increase, a very optional feat. If you want, just go with increasing your straight intelligence. At 14th level, we gain Heart and Soul. We can no longer be frightened, and we have advantage against being charmed, which we already have that because we're an elf, but that's fine. At 15th level, we gain Gravesight. We can see through magical darkness up to 30 feet, as well as we can see invisible creatures and objects up to 30 feet, so extraordinarily useful. And at 16th level, this is where I decided to go with the feat Skilled, because I felt that this character was missing some skills. This character more so benefits from skills as opposed to straight modifiers, but of course, it depends on what you view. So I decided to go with Acrobatics here, Religion, and Perception. I felt like these 3 really benefited us. Alright, now that we're over here at the overview, we can get a better understanding of what we're looking at. So as we see these imaginary stats that we rolled, pretty decent. We do want to see if we can't get that intelligence and dexterity up as much as humanly possible, half-elfinly possible, I guess, in this case. As we can see here, we have a whole bunch of skills here that we can take away from to benefit in whichever scenario that we're going up against. We have a pretty decent AC. This is thanks to our studded leather armor. Not only this, once we start to blade sing, our AC will go up because of our intelligence, up to a 26. And then as a reaction, we can use our shield spell, which increases it up to a 31, which is insane. So we can have a 31 AC with this character. Not many things are going to hit you at that point, but there's a small chance. Other recommended equipment, I would recommend, of course, going with that rapier, a very beautiful finesse weapon. Amulet of Health, very useful, increasing our con up to a 19. More con means a better chance of maintaining concentration. Also, this, while we are concentrating on a spell, is actually a plus 10, so make sure you remember that. I would also recommend investing into a Ring of Protection. This increased our armor score and all of our saving throws. Very, very beneficial. And of course, the Cloak of Displacement would be very befitting this character, that we have a high AC, and we also have give other people disadvantage on attacks against us. So this is an incredibly useful item, but of course, these are just suggested items. So the idea with my backstory for this character is that, as they're a half-elf, they've had to work very hard in order to gain the respect of essentially what would have been some sort of elven mentor. In this case, I'm still working this out with the DM. And so she or he, they've convinced this person to teach them how to blade sing, and so they've been practicing and they've been learning about how to do this elven archetype bullshit. I can't think of the word right now. But eventually, after, say, the point of which they've learned how to blade sing, maybe they've been so sick and tired of how they've been treated, so they've exiled themselves from that society of elves. They've moved on, and then now they're putting their skills to a better use. This is where the urban bounty hunter background comes into play, where I decided to take my very unique set of skills into hunting down people, hunting down whatever, and claiming contracts. I became maybe a bit more selfish. I became a bit more self-centered. And then maybe perhaps I started to run into maybe some some fiends, some undead, some whatever. Maybe I started to encounter a lot of ghosts, and I've had to deal with these creatures within these cities. Maybe there's been select cases of me running into them. Now I've started to make a name for myself where people are requesting from my audience to go deal with these problems. And this is the point in which I would realize that my blade singing isn't enough for this. I need to learn more about these people. I have a specialized field of knowledge now of some of these entities, and I'm looking to how can I deal with the fiends, the fae, and the undead better, and this is where I would then delve into the Blood Hunter order. And then progressively, this character can become a bit maybe more humble and stop being so selfish, and they're working towards maybe a better goal in life. They're not solely looking out for themselves, and maybe not just looking to take contracts for money, and they'll do something for the greater good. At the same time, with us going down into the path of the Ghost Slayer, along with the Blood Hunter, you take on aspects of those things that you are fighting. So with the Ghost Slayer, you are becoming perhaps maybe to a degree a bit more colder and disconnected whenever we go on that aspect, but that's a down the road kind of thing. I'm not sure how this character will play out, but that's just one example that I feel like this character could become, or your own character. And just I mostly said this backstory. I think I want to do this a bit more where I'll involve like part of my own backstory, and that way, because I feel like whenever I hear this, it inspires me to write more about my own backstory, because I get into it a lot. Also, when you're writing your backstory, I'd recommend involving your DM a lot, because if you involve your DM, then they're going to be more invested and involved in your own backstory, then they're going to have a stake in it. So yeah, I hope that this inspired you, gave you some ideas of a character to play. It doesn't take much to have a very awesome character. You don't even need to go into the wizard. I felt like that wizard blade singer really benefited the Blood Hunter, and for what I felt like part of what it was missing for me. That whole aspect of us hunting and tracking, we get that from the Blood Hunter, but then the Blade Singer really makes us that combatant specialist, that person that is not to be fucked with, and I love that aspect of it. So this is the character that I hope you, as myself, are looking forward to play. So with that, thank you again for watching. This is going to be weird. Consider subscribing or leaving a comment or liking or whatever. I'm still trying to get used to that with YouTube, but I feel like I maybe have to do that as well too now, but hey, whatever. Have a great day, as always, and thank you again. Bye-bye.